This is the 615 Podcast with your host, veteran realtor and entrepreneur, Nick Woodard.
All right, our guest today is a client and a longtime friend of mine. He's without a doubt one of the most positive and inspirational people I've ever known. He's a man that I've looked up to since my early 20s, has the innate ability to speak life and encouragement to others. He's a bona fide leader of people in everything he touches. He is an incredible husband, father, and loves the Lord with all his heart. My good friend, Gabe Sedlak. What's up, brother?
That I need to take a breath on that one. I need that above the fireplace. What you just said. That was strong, man. Since your 20s.
20s.
Seriously? Yeah. When you were first getting your real estate license?
Remember I got into real estate at 23, 24?
Wow.
Then I met you. Your wife was my loan officer.
She was?
Yes.
It has been a while. Jeez Louise, goodness. Wow.
Do you remember when we met?
At the coffee shop on Carruthers.
Yep.
And you were in the corner studying for your real estate exam.
Correct.
I remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then I introduced you to my sister.
We still talk
Tracy
about
Bonds.
that. We say, you got to meet my sister. And she walked in her white suit, and we never forgot it. Ever since then, she's made an entrance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, Gabe, I want to have you on to talk a bit about, you've been through quite a journey in the last year or so.
Oh, wow. Last year or so has been quite the journey. And thanks again for that introduction. You know, sometimes I want to say this. Sometimes when you hear somebody talking about yourself, it's a sober reminder that everything we do matters always to everyone, every time.
Right.
And every opportunity you have a chance to leave an imprint or be forgettable. So thank you.
Absolutely, buddy. Thank you so much. I mean, you have the innate ability to rebound from setbacks. And I think that's why it was very important to have you on, because I've seen you go through multiple business ventures, some very successful, some not as much, but even after the successful ones may have not turned out how you would have them turn out, you rebound, pick up something else and roll with it. So give us a little bit of breakdown on what you've been through in the past year or so.
Yeah. You've, and for anybody watching, you've heard it said that once your mindset is anchored, and there's multiple levels of that, but once you become the person that can rebound because you know the mechanics or the mindset it takes to do it, you can take everything somebody has and they'll get it again in short order. Right. And it's a fact. It's a fact. Last few years have been really wild. We helped thousands, hundreds of thousands of people going into multiple countries, be entrepreneurs and build a business that they could do from home for 16 years. And then most recently, I guess we'll just address that and we won't talk about it anymore, is many of you watching, there's a few lessons in this, but one of them is if you ever put 100% of your trust, your stock, and your roots in one thing, if that one thing shakes, then everything dominoes. The only thing, and so we had some years back, the company I was working with just suddenly decided in a 5-minute phone call to completely restructure how we're paid. It was so catastrophic that we ended up having a domino effect. Part of it was we sold the house and we just got rid of all of the extra fluff and tried to create buoyancy. Because
let's not just toss that aside. Like you were a part of it was a big deal. Like you did really well for yourself. And it was something you built
many
from
millions
scratch.
of dollars. Correct. Yeah. And your sister actually was the first one to join me. And she also made many millions. And and all of us helped a lot of people. And when we say millions, let's understand that $1 million isn't enough anymore. We all know that, right? $1 million is the new 100,000. Yep. So that language can't scare anybody. You need at least $1 million. They say that the average person works 30 years and nets 1.4 in a lifetime. That's terrifying. So your $1 million, if you will, just gives you your life back.
Right.
So it's almost an equalizer. So that's a necessary watermark. But anyway, so we helped launch a home-based business, very famous name. It's not important to talk about it, but and suddenly
Rodan and Fields.
There it was. Yeah. Well, anyway, so okay, let's talk about it now. Thank you for doing that for me. Yeah, Rodan and Fields had the potential to do incredible things and change the world, but greed, private equity, the wrong people at corporate,
Right.
you name it. That it's a classic corporate America scenario where the potential is destroyed because a few people have greed or jealousy or whatever, and so they restructure it. So thousands of people are affected at whim, and so we had a sudden change in the compensation structure, right? And so it was so devastating that you had to kind of go, how do you recover fast enough from the free fall in a 5-minute Zoom call? So you guys that have worked for corporations and you've done the right thing for 10 or 20 years, and suddenly one day you walk in your office and there's a box on your desk. It was similar.
Right.
So we had to do and the wisdom, I think, is we ran to the battle line. We didn't let the battle line run to us. So immediately we're thinking, let's cut all the fat now because we don't know where the bottom is. Thank God we did that. Still not easy. So the free fall continued. We went down to 80% of our income lost.
Oh my God.
80%. So at that point, they made another sudden decision, and that sudden decision a second time on another call knocked us at least 10,000 below our bills. So, when you're making, 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month, 50,000 a month, 100,000 a month, 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, like many in the team were doing, you can really do a lot with that. But you take any of those numbers and you knock it down 80%, it's catastrophic because
of course,
your life was held up because of that to some degree. So anyway,
plus the psychological aspect of it.
Yeah, because you can't allow yourself to have your identity in it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the big one is I am my circumstances. We've talked about this before. You're not your circumstances. Circumstances are you are standing the stance in which the circumference is around you. It feels like you're closed in and you are not your circumstances. And the real trick that destroys people is when you look at something temporary. So I could have taken that situation and said, this is my identity. This is who I am. My worth is my income. What are people going to think? All the stuff that we had, the cars, the house, the motorcycles, the expensive cars, the cool stuff, the travel vans, the golf carts, all the stuff and the house gone. Now what? Who am I? Well, right. So that was a big one that you have to get free of. And then finally, back in July 15th, as a matter of fact, I remember it clearly. There was another Zoom call, and we thought we were going to launch another product. Suddenly, the company gets on Zoom and says, effective immediately. And basically, they said, bye-bye, thanks for playing. Just know you're valuable. So then the income's gone. So
you've made a donation in your name.
Correct. And so the first time it hit a while back, some years earlier, I said, my wife, she had a moment where she said, babe, why aren't you freaking out? Because right after the call ended, I'm just kind of looking. I know the room I was standing in, I was looking, and she went like 3 shades of green. Not that she's weak or anything like that. She just didn't know how to process it. And a few minutes later, I said, actually, I'm a bit encouraged. In one respect, it's weird how like the presence of God can come in and rush your heart in crazy times with something you weren't expecting. But basically, this is what I heard. The only reason you're so bothered is because you gave them that much power. I never told you to give anybody that much power or anything much power but me. I went, gotcha. So at that point, we began to make decisions. So by the time they had eroded this thing, the 80%, and then dumped the company, we had already gotten to a place in our minds and our lives where we were very disconnected from all of this noise. And to the point that when they said, hey, the company's gone, 16 years, we raised our kids in it. We've traveled everywhere in it. We said, and I'm almost finished. We said immediately when we heard, like, thank you for playing. It's basically over. We said, wow. Holly and I looked at each other across the table. Big smile. She laughed out loud and I laughed out loud. And we said, I am excited for what is next. This is going to be a good story. And there was joy that exploded inside of us because we had been, even in light of all that crisis, first fruits of our income, first fruits of our morning, first fruits of our day, first fruits of all of our increase, fruits of our time. We just dedicated everything to God a whole nother level. And so if you build your house on the rock, the storms come and you're not blown down. Sure. So, because things can change like this, but if you're destroyed because of circumstances, you're already dead.
Well, I've said this before to friends, going through some of the things I've gone through in my life, some of the hardest times, it's almost like you're in the eye of a hurricane as it's going all around you. However, God has you right there in his hands.
Right there.
Well, that's I wanted to get into something having to do with that, but like the stress of being a husband and father. How in the world do we deal with those catastrophic events? As we go through some stresses that a lot of people may not understand. Completely. Like I'm thinking I have the natural ability to live inside my own head, and at times it can almost paralyze me. Thinking 5, 10, 15 steps ahead. Oh my God, I got 2 girls that, we're going to have to pay for weddings. I got to put 3 in college. Have we saved up enough for retirement? Am I balancing being a present father, versus taking care of my clients well? Am I using what God's giving me to its fullest? Mm-hmm. And it can literally paralyze your thought process.
Completely paralyzed. Yep.
But you seem to roll with it very well.
Well, and I'll add a little after that last long explanation. We're in an extraordinary place, better than we have probably ever been in our lives. Let's just put it that way. So that's a whole nother part of the story. Thank God for it. And as a matter of fact, not that those things had to happen or they were meant to happen or any of that theological stuff that people love to bring to the table, because end result justifies the means. And there's a whole bunch to that. Nevertheless, it happened, but God. So that's where we're at with it. Going forward with the headspace, the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, God, and this, people don't want to hear this, but men and women are different.
You don't say.
Yeah, they're very different, and physically,
as if God made us that
correct.
way.
Hey, it's the perfect match, and women and men process stress, life, and pressure differently. Men generally have a tendency to shut down, close off, react, or get angry, or try to control circumstances.
I'm allowed to freak out for a second, and then I got to get my ass in gear.
Correct. But the key is not to bring it home, because if the biggest thing is the husband, what does the scripture say? The husbands, love your wives as Christ, not wives, plural. Husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. And we're to do one thing. We're to wash them with the water of the word. We bring them close under the protection of. We speak life and truth. We fight our battles many times with them not having to see it, because it protects them. And then we come home, we wash the blood off, and we give them a hug. The problem that men have, sadly, is a lot of them want the wives to understand the battle, and they want to talk about the battle, and they want to talk about the details, and they want them to have this, I need you right along with me. Who else am I going to tell? The truth is that many times those things shouldn't be shared. I'm not saying you hold anything back. I'm just talking about, if you've ever watched a gruesome movie, which I do not watch, by the way, but I'm just saying anything gruesome, even in like a war movie, the imagery gets in your mind. You don't need to speak the imagery to somebody else, right? So a lot of the times, the greatest thing I can do is this is the answer I used to give Holly when we were building our little mini kingdom, right? I would say, hey, babe, I'm going to go make it happen. And she'd say, what do you mean you're going to go make it happen? Right. I said, I'm going to go make it happen. She goes, what does that mean? And I knew that I couldn't articulate all of the things I was going to do. I was going to just go, pull the sword out, and cut through the noise and come back and bring the deer and throw it on the table and say,
hunters hunt.
That's it.
Warriors do warrior things.
Correct. And there was an element of that she needed me to compartmentalize that. So I would go out and do the battle, come back, and then she did what I couldn't do, obviously, and I did what she couldn't do. So I think the solicitation of every little detail many times to the wife is it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Well, going through what you went through, again, you always seem to rebound very well. So, like, what advice could you give people listening that may be going through it right now?
I mean, okay. Let's. I could give you any other answer,
but God.
Correct, and it would actually be a feel good, touchy feely, itching ears, and it would not help you, unless this is a fact, 1,000% fact. Take everything I have right now. Tomorrow, put me out in a desert, naked, no clothes, and no shelter. This is still the truth. Doesn't matter. If you are not renewing your mind on by the washing of the water of the Word, if you are not in the Word, if you do not have quiet time, and you are not in the Scriptures, the only thing we have on this planet is the Scripture that renews the mind. And unless, that's why the Bible says you have to cast down every thought and every imagination and every vain thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. And you basically put it under submission. This is paraphrased. But if you don't get that in your head, then you're just going to be you're going to be really good at trivia. You're going to be very good at psychology. You're going to be very good at all the books you read. And you're going to give human effort answers back to human effort problems. You have to have something that comes in, sees things in art as though they are, speaks words of life into a circumstance that otherwise is contrary. When Jesus said, don't even consider the contrary circumstances, that doesn't come out of you unless your mind's been renewed. So I can tell you, I am sitting here alive and sane. My children are sane. My wife is sane. Our marriage has never been better. Our kids have never been better. Everything has never been better because of the first fruits of getting that right. I could say, you can get an accountability group and hang out with a bunch of dudes and all the stuff that everybody loves to do, and it's going to give you that much of the answer. It's a fact.
Wow.
There is no other answer. We love to try to find other answers. There is no other answer. There's no other answer. And then you find out who you actually are. Then you find out what your identity is. Then you find out who he sees you. Then you understand how to speak over yourself. The big battle is, it was one thing for the children of Israel to get free from bondage. But in the wilderness, they had to get their confession right.
Right.
You don't go into promised land unless your confession's right. And if you are talking two talks, if your whole life is rehearsing the problem, declaring what's going on, and constantly speaking circumstances and the shortcomings, you will create it. You literally create the life of words. Why is the whole book of James dedicated to it? Because the tongue can create big fires, can turn big ships, can move big horses with the bridles, as we know if you read James. So to beat on that a minute, you just have to, because here's what happens. When you squeeze an orange, what comes out?
Orange juice.
Orange juice. When you squeeze most people, what comes out? Profanity, anger, concern, worry, and the laundry list of all the problems that are around them. And that's all they can talk about. But if you squeeze somebody who's been filled with God, the word comes out, and the word changes things. Yeah.
I've always tried to make it a point to, whenever I'm going through things, look back and go, okay, what have I dealt with in the past that God has showed up at the last minute? And that continues to just pump, it just continues to put you in the right frame of mind to not only expect what's coming, but know what's coming. God's going to show up at any minute. You just don't know when.
He gives you an expected end.
Exactly.
Very strong. And the scripture says, God only, people say, God only gives you what you can handle. Listen, and he only shows you so much. No, the scripture says he gives you an expected end. With long life will I satisfy you, right? It's up to you. That's a whole nother conversation, theological conversation. And it says he gives you a lamp unto your feet, which is a lesser light so you can see what's right in front of you. Lamp unto your feet and a light into your path. Same verse, two sides of it. So not only do you see what's in front of you, but you're also able to see the path before you. So there's no darkness. So you can walk with expectation and clearly. Crazy people would take their children and blindfold them and say, go through the house and figure it out. And why do we think God works that way? Because it packs churches, sells books, and it makes sense of human condition. And that's religion.
Wow.
Yeah.
I told you this before we got on here, wanted to ask you about a crazy story that you've dealt with. Not necessarily, a situation, but, tell us something that, okay, you've built many businesses. You've obviously gone through things up and down. Is there anything that was just absolutely shocking to you that is A, entertaining, but B, is like, holy crap, how did that just happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the first thought I had when you said that, and this is nothing, I'm
setting you up because I want to tell a funny story.
Okay. I'm going to give you a smaller funny so you can hit me with a bigger funny. Okay. This is almost because, we're going deep, man. You said just let it go. We're going to let it go.
We're going to let it go.
Because on the other side of this podcast, there are people listening that are absolutely cornered. They have no answer, no option, no direction. They don't have the wisdom. They don't know who to ask. They don't know who to talk to, and the circumstances are insurmountable. And Mr. and Mrs. Perfect that drive up in the Bentley. I mean, we live in Williamson County, right? It's blue jeans and Bentleys. Come on, right? Right? That's the town. But Mr. and Mrs. Perfect to drive up were just having war in the car before they came out and said, "Oh, how you doing?" "Blessed. I'm blessed." "Oh, yes." Mm-hmm. We know that there is nightmares behind people's houses and behind their doors all the time. And so we got to speak clearly, because that stuff to hide that doesn't fix it. But then God knows you shouldn't share it with just about anybody, because people can't handle it. So you got to be really like crazy careful who you share your personal stuff with. Anyway, so I was thinking about human nature when you said that. Like, what's the craziest thing that kind of baffled you? Now, one thing that really baffled me, and I did huge trainings on it because I couldn't even believe it, because it was at a peak. We went to a place in our business. We went from $17,000 a month, and I think it was a several month period. We went from $17,000 a month in residual earnings to $70,000. Right? That was a huge jump for us. During that time, most of it, I remember, was jackhammering people's mindsets, right? The exhaustion of just getting people to try to think right, because people will fight for bondage. They will fight to stay stuck. They will argue. I always say the most offensive thing to a religious world is a victorious Christian. Walk in power, walk in authority, walk in healing, walk in provision, walk in strength, have an amazing marriage. You are offensive to a world that loves to build doctrine around making sense of the conditions, right?
100%.
Well, one time I'm on the phone. This has just made me think, and I might think of another crazy story in a minute, but this was just a fascinating observation of human nature. So we're right at the peak of this growth, and I get on this big conference call, and this guy, the lady says, "Hey, I got this guy I want you to talk to. He's amazing, and he has all this experience in business." So of course, here's his 9-foot resume. Okay, so I'm talking to him and explaining the business and our products and, the financial upside and all these things. And then halfway in the conversation, my son Aiden, he's little, he runs in the room and he says, "Daddy,
he's
Daddy."
Not little now, he's sitting over here.
Gigantor.
So he came in, I introduced myself, and I've known him since he was 10 years old. I had no clue that was your boy.
Just now, you had no idea?
No clue.
Yeah. Yeah, he's taller than me, stronger than me, wiser than me, and Hudson is taller than me, stronger than me, and wiser than me. So
yeah, don't let him try to check you though.
They're gonna carry me around.
Yeah, he's still got daddy strength on y'all.
Well, there is something to that.
Absolutely,
it's terrible. There's levels of dad strength that are scary. But also, I think fathers glory in their kids becoming better, smarter, faster, more efficient, better looking. You just want them to be better in all ways. There's nothing more nauseating than watching there's nothing more nauseating than watching a man or a woman in competition with their children, trying to one up their kids. It's sickening.
I also think that's a lot of people's fears right now is it seemed like our country was heading in a direction where our kids are not going to have it better than we did.
No, it's by design. Yeah, of course.
So, we do better than our parents did. Our parents did better than we did. I think it got to a place where at least I was very concerned that my kids are going to have a very difficult time even getting to the place that I'm at.
But it can change. And in your house, you can create almost an incubation of truth that can cause them to bypass that stuff, which is really fantastic. But I'll tell you the story real quick. So we're So I'm on this phone call explaining all of it. Aiden runs in the room. He goes, Daddy, I need your attention. I said, hold on a second, babe. I'm on a call. But Daddy, I said, sir, excuse me just a second. My son just ran in here and he has a quick question. I went, so give me 2 seconds. I said, yes. Yeah. He goes, I don't know. I said, okay. Yeah, I'll be in there in a minute. We'll do it in a minute. Okay. Sorry, sir. Thank you so much. Anyway, so working from home. And I said, yeah, we work from home and we homeschool the kids. And I said, this is why we do what we do. We've designed our lives on purpose so we never have to miss a moment. I continue to talk to him. He says, thank you very much. Gets off the phone call. 1 day goes by, 2 days go by. I'm like, what happened? The lady calls me. She goes, hey, Gabriel, I want to just tell you where we're at. I said, well, yeah, I'm excited. Where's this guy at? What does he want to do? Does he want to join us? I mean, she goes, this is what her words. She said, he thinks you're a damn liar. Said,
Gabe, you're a lot of things. Hey. A damn liar is not one of them.
Yeah, I'm like, that was not what I expected, And she said, he was so sickened. This was the words. He was so sickened by the fact that you played him like you did. So I'm a damn liar. He's sickened and I played him. So this is getting thick. She goes, yeah, he just couldn't believe it that, you had a certain point and every time you're on a conversation with somebody, you stop, you play a recording of your child. You play a recording of your child coming in the room, pretending that you work from home and that you're with your kids. And then at an opportune time, you stop it, go back to the conversation just so you can hoodwink people into joining you.
That is some sick, twisted, deep level thinking right there.
I thought, and so that carried on a whole series of trainings I ended up doing. And I think I made a lot of money because of that ridiculous comment. But what happened was
I'm out showing property and I'm like, okay, open up the cage, let the deer out.
Correct. Right. And let's call it back.
We're selling the dream. We're
Bambi,
selling the dream.
And so I thought to myself, isn't it shocking that people are so jaded? Here's this man with a 9-foot resume, pseudo success, house in the suburbs, 2.5 cars, 2.5 kids, maybe wife number 1, wife number 2. God only knows with that. Or wife number 5, who knows? Right. And he is so jaded, so broken, cannot even see straight that if somebody is living a life that is just, I work from home and we homeschool our kids, and he came in to have a conversation with me during a conference call, it was so beyond his capacity to process such a strange outer space experience that he vehemently had to attack it in disbelief and call me a liar. And I just realized that that's where the world is, guys.
It's just sad.
That's where the world is with everything,
That's more of a cutthroat life. I want nothing to do with that.
So that was not that was pretty wow to me, but you've got something more wow.
mine's not, deep and
that was a deep
thought provoking.
This is the fun one. Mine was deep. Yours is fun. Go.
So I had out of town clients that were here from Denver, and they're going to crack up when they listen to this podcast. So we were. Long story short, I have a piece of property south of here that has a pond on it, and I wanted to stock it with some bass from a local lake. So I built a holding tank for these fish that we caught, and it had a bubbler in it, which we hooked up to the battery. So that was the day before, and knowing that I was going to go show property, I also had to set out an open house sign for an open house that we were having that following weekend. So as I'm coming out of the garage, I grab the open house sign, just throw it in the back of the truck, go meet my clients. No big deal. So I pick them up. We go look at a few properties. As I'm in the house, one of them looks at me and goes, Nick, your truck's on fire.
No way.
I was like, excuse me? I said, buddy, your truck's on fire. So I go running out there. Sure enough, the back of the truck is in flames. Get this, that open house sign I had thrown in the back of the truck jostled around as we were driving, and the metal stakes that you stick in the ground just happened to land directly on both posts of that battery that I had left in the back of that truck, which heated up the frame, which heated up the sign.
No.
Caught fire in the back of the truck. I happen to have a 5-gallon bucket racing around this house, filling it up from the spigot outside. Dump the water in. Everything's fine except for it is completely melted everything in the back of that truck.
So it literally bonfired the back of your truck, which is dangerous. It could have.
Of course. But I'm all about giving my clients an experience when buying a home.
Yeah, that must get
They'll
expensive
never forget
having
that.
prop vehicles you light on fire just for drama.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see how you fake that whole situation just to make it exciting and distract them from the house buying pressures and the numbers.
Of course.
Yeah. What a You know what? You do everything right, people hate you. You do everything wrong, people hate you. You just but you got to go with the flow. That's funny. You got to go with the flow.
Absolutely. And it created a great experience for them. Ironically, it's a story they'll always tell. They became fast friends of mine.
Well, one thing I have to say about Nick, this is so amazing, is like, look at the 615 podcast, the hat, the beard, the t-shirt. You have been so consistent. You haven't tried to pretend to be a real estate agent. You know the glamour shots that everybody has, and you see them in their 30-year-old pictures.
That was 20 years ago, ma'am.
Yeah. The joke in our last company was, with our product, we actually help you look like your glamour shot. Right. So it was a terrible joke. That was my joke.
Shots. Is that still a thing?
Well, if you're of any age, you know exactly what I just said. But you have been super consistent. You've been raw. It's boots and jeans. It's a conversation. It's a cup of coffee. It's a pickup truck. It's get it done. You're not trying to have all of the pretension. Now, if you need to suit up, you suit up, right? You're not rebellious. The point is that you don't try to walk around as a quote real estate agent that's always dolling themselves up for whatever. And it's so refreshing to just be like, this guy is as real as he is when he shakes your hand from the time you give him the keys and the house is now theirs.
I appreciate that,
That's
brother.
a fact. That's a fact. And you've been consistent from the coffee shop until now. all those days.
Well, I tried my best to just, hey, listen, I grew up here. I know this area.
Yep.
What you see is what you get. I'm not going to BS you.
Nope.
Like I love relationships, and that's what I've tried to do. Brand myself as, he's the guy that grew up here. He knows everything about this area. And again, what you see is what you get.
Well, that's how you've also outlived all of the economic ups and downs. You've just been consistent.
Well, I appreciate that, my man.
So anybody, let's just go ahead and do a plug. Do not, I'm going to say it strong, don't waste your time talking to anybody else. I mean it. Where's the cameras?
Thanks, man.
I'm serious. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Well, let's get into one more thing here. I
mean that nice. I don't mean that, I don't mean you're wasting your time if you talk to anybody else, but you understand. Save yourself time. He's the best.
Thanks, buddy. You live here.
Yep.
You raised your kids here.
Yep.
Tell us one or two things that you love about living in Williamson County, Middle Tennessee. What are those one or two things that you feel you can't get anywhere else, that what keeps you here?
There's a few things. There is something very soul-filling about the topography, a little bit of the country lifestyle, the country feel that's always here, kind of woven and everything. So no matter how...
And you don't mean downtown bar country.
No. No. But you can have it's blue jeans and Bentleys. It's a beautiful combination.
I have to use that.
You have
that's so good.
There's a level of excellence and refinement, and obviously Williamson County is one of the top 10 wealthiest counties in America. Right? If people don't know that, it's astonishing what's happening here. But you can be over one hill at a cool coffee shop or at a corporation, and you go over one hill and you're in this beautiful farm that's been there for 200 years. So it's a beautiful blend of. You feel at home. It feels America. It feels good, but yet at the same time, if you want to just step out your door and take two lefts and one right, you're uptown, and that balance is almost impossible to find anywhere. Yeah.
I agree.
And the moral undertone.
Place.
There's a lot of moral undertone of the town. There's still family actually matters in this town.
Yeah. It's a very, very special place.
Yep.
That's for sure. So, Well, Gabe, brother, I am so grateful you came on the show. One thing that I want to always give a gift to my people. Mr. Producer, you got a gift for us?
Oh, bad on camera. I missed that shot. But replay.
There you go, buddy.
Wow.
Your own 615
this is the
hat.
real thing.
The real authentic 615.
My son told me, Dad, can you get some cool hats, please? This is a cool hat.
I don't know if you remember, you and Holly gave me a camouflage 615 hat when we closed on your house a while back.
Not.
Uh-huh.
Really?
It's actually still in the truck.
615. That is it right there.
There you go.
Well, and thank you so much for the time. And I just want to encourage everybody watching. At the end of the day, life hits you. Thank you for this. I'm excited. Life hits you. And there is the inconsistencies of life will always be, right? But we cannot, you don't want a 10-year journey to be a 40-year walk. You don't want, because, the Egyptians left Egypt. All the wealth was given to the people. They had everything they needed, and it was a 10-day journey. But because of the complaining, their mouth, and taking into consideration the contrary circumstance, take me back to Egypt. It was better back in Egypt. It was better back in Egypt. And I think it's I've been studying it all over again. The parallels are incredible. Life, the greatest thing, what does it say? If you can control your tongue, you can control the whole body. Most people's problems, Nick, is what comes out of their mouth. Almost, it's not the lack of money. It's not that this person doesn't understand me. It's the words that come out of people's mouths. I love what the Bible says. Let every man be a liar and God be the truth. And if any man speaks, let him speak the very oracles of God. When I'm coaching people, or because there's a lot of that, I say let's do two things. And I know we ended the podcast, but I need to give you guys a couple of nuggets.
We're rolling. We're still going.
Okay, we didn't end it. ... So I said, let me see your social media. And if it's full of garbage, innuendo, nonsense, banter, number one problem, it's a reflection. Because now your social media is your credit score. So if your social media is jacked, fix it. Because you may think it's cute, but the world doesn't. Except the people that are like that, and you don't want them anyway.
Yep.
Number two, I say, let me look at your wife. I always say that. And when you look in the wife, in her eyes, you know exactly what's going on in the household. That's a tough one because the woman doesn't lie. You know what's going on. And you know that a man is a thermostat. He is not a thermometer.
God, you told me that 20 years ago.
A woman is a thermometer. She reacts to the temperature. Now, you're welcome to comment and say stuff and complain and say you don't understand. That's a man talking. Enjoy that opinion. But a husband or a man is a thermostat. They set the temperature.
Yep.
And everything, children and the wife and everything reflects the temperature that is set. So I always look at the wife and I said, now I know where the thermostat is, right? And the third thing is I want to know what comes out of their mouth. So I listen to somebody talk a while and I say, you've hired me or you've read my book or, we're going to going to coach you or you're going to join me in business or whatever the connection is. And I said, it didn't take very long to find out what the problem is. And usually it is because we spend a lifetime repeating all of the problems, and very rarely, when the scripture says, speak things that aren't as though they are, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he, be it so according to your faith. The power of the tongue, the whole book of James, you'll realize at the end of the day, when all is said and done and everything gets wrapped up on the planet, we're all going to see that which was put on the word and that which was built on the rock stands. Everything else falls apart. Business is a reflection of what comes out of your mouth and how you operate, how you think yourself. Because if you didn't think much of yourself, it's hard to explain this, but if you walked up to me and said, hey, I'm a realtor and, if you want to buy a house, I can show you some MLS listings. I don't want to do that very long because that's actually hurting my body holding that posture. It's actually making my neck hurt. And if you gave me a dead fish handshake And then, every time your conversation, your joke, there's a little perverse innuendos, stuff like this. I'm like, you're chasing the world away.
Right.
And one thing a man is, and it's rare, if you can find a godly man that has a strong character, that loves his family, that is fearless, that has his mouth right, and does the right thing, even when you had the opportunity to do the wrong thing. We had opportunities over the last few years to quote unquote compromise, not that we would have, but we had been offered things that if we had said yes to it, it would have destroyed our witness. We said, we will go broke and lose everything. My wife even said, she says, we would move into an apartment with the kids, get a rental car, and move your mom in with her crazy cat in her cat box before we're going to compromise. And I said, that's exactly right, because it takes a long time to build a reputation. It takes about 10 seconds to destroy it.
Yep.
And so
my dad used to say, you can get a whole lot of attaboys, but one oh shit wipes them all out.
That is correct. And I have to say that you have done an extraordinary job, because you've overcome a lot yourself.
Have.
And to be standing here in your right mind, hungry, beautiful family, successful businessman, and your days are spent trying to lift up, edify, and help other people, and you don't have your identity in your business or any of that stuff. You're, at the end of the day, you're trying to lift people up and give them answers. It's very unusual. Most people are selfish, and they look at people and they see what they can suck from them. You aren't doing that. You know that you'll get that if you pour into others. And so you're a rare one, folks. You need to reach out to Nick. He's the man. So
anybody listening, is there any question why I keep Gabe close to the vest? I mean, he is someone. I'm telling you the truth. He is somebody I have gone to for years whenever I've gone through struggles. Just his ability to, y'all just saw what, 30, 45 minutes? Where are we now? 42 minutes. Like, the wisdom he just spoke is just a tiny little bit. Tell everybody about you. You have a book too. You got a book. You're
I do.
Coaching. You do it all, and we'll put everything in the show notes so you have access to Gabe's stuff. But what y'all just heard is just a little snippet of the depth this man goes to, and I promise you will get some value by staying close to him. Check out his stuff. Check out his socials.
Gabriel Sedlak. Anything, just look it up at Gabriel Sedlak. Yeah. So I'm about to do my book in Audible. I was telling my wife last night, I said, I think it's about time I put it on Audible. So
I think it's about time you have a podcast.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Yes,
Jim, can you get that?
Yes, sir.
Can you get that going?
We might have talked.
I think people need to hear more of Gabriel Sedlak.
Well, at the end of the day, this is where the world's going to get run. The world is going to be run. Think about what just happened at the with the White House press secretary. Did you hear what they said? What the lady said last night? She goes, effective immediately. The legacy media ain't the only ones going to be in this room. If you are a TikToker and you have an audience and you're an influencer and you can pass our scrutiny, you're allowed in the White House. If you have a YouTube channel, if you are this, if you are that. So they're allowing all influence in social media, every level, to come in. So you're going to have crazy accountability. Basically what he did is he just destroyed the legacy media,
the gatekeeper,
in one moment.
Yep.
Just destroyed it. Yep.
We're in for some very unique changes.
Yep.
So, well, Gabe, brother, I appreciate you.
Wow.
Love you. And anything I can ever do, you know I am there for you, just like you've been for me.
615.
All right, guys. Appreciate you joining us. God bless.